don't understand women like that just get pregnant, and like what outcomes do you think is going to happen, and why are they so comfortable bringing in those type of babies from situations that they were never in a real relationship with this person?
I also think that it has become normalized to be overly sexual and having children out of wedlock. And so I think it doesn't have as much of a stigma attached to it until you get into multiple births with multiple baby daddies. Like you haven't, like in her case, I don't know if she has multiple baby daddies, but you have 5 kids, right? And you're single and you're not married. But I think it's more acceptable in this generation, well, in this era in time, where if you have 1 kid out of wedlock, maybe 2, then is kind of normalized. And so I do think when society normalizes certain behavior that isn't good for us, we tell ourselves that is okay.
So I'm sorry. You can go first. Well, I'm taking it from different angles. Okay. So yes, she has mismanaged her reproductive system. Absolutely. But in the grand scheme of things, I think somebody was talking. It could have been mistaken. Somebody was in it. It dawned on me that women were made to reproduce. And what's really happening here is people are not marrying, because had this woman done the right order, where she got married at a decent age, then ideally these women, these kids would have been a product of a household with 2 parents. But because marriage is being taken out of the equation and is been pushed to the 30s and 40s, these women are still having sex. Men are still having sex. And then voila, kids are being born. So when we take marriage out of the equation and not being married, the normal, pretty much like everybody else, then it's leaving this loophole where these people, it's more room for kids out of wedlock, because people are going to have sex. They just are. And we can say, oh, why isn't she on birth control, or why isn't she having an abortion? All of these things are unnatural things. Okay, what's natural is reproducing. What's natural is mating, being married. That's quote unquote natural, the norm. So when you take one variable out of the equation, it just screws everything else up.
Yeah, like people are saying in the comments, that Kiki Palmer just announced her pregnancy. I think she's around my age, or so. She's like 30, 31. Um, and she just announced her pregnancy, and everyone was cheering her on, congratulating her, so excited. Um, she is not married, but it seems like she's having a baby with her boyfriend. It has become normalized, like, well, at least he's around. But, I think a lot of people are like, but for how long? Because during that pregnancy and after that baby, you're not guaranteed security from that. Why is it so many women are like, where did we learn that? I feel like a lot of women don't have, especially Black women, we don't have boundaries when it comes to sex.
Can I just add a stat in there to go along with that? Just keep in mind too, when I read, we did stats on this last week. What I read is 60% of kids are born into 2 parents cohabitating. They may not be married, but there is unwedlock birth, but they are living together. And that was at 60%, the last article that I read. So yes, going back to what he was saying, it may be in a fantasy, oh, we're living like we are in a relationship, we're just not married. And just like you said, those relationships, how long is he gonna be here? Because just because you're together right now and you're not married, it's like an easy way out. We don't know how long he's gonna be.
Is it a difference? Because if you're cohabitating and raising the children together.
No, because most of them, it starts out that way, but it doesn't. The problem is that it's not lasting.
And can I say this too? I think that part of a huge marriage is a huge part of the equation. And I think we've done ourselves a disservice by really perverting the meaning of marriage. Because I hear two like competing ideals. One, that you marry for love, and we end up marrying because we have a feeling of love, not understanding that that feeling is going to pass. It's not going to remain the same forever. And two, I hear a lot of people say that marriage is a business. So nobody really, I don't think we ever really came to the understanding that love is unity, is making a commitment that I am going to take the specific actions that entail loving you, that I'm going to always try to my best to be patient with you. I'm always going to try to be humble. I'm not going to envy others. I'm going to persevere with you. All of those qualities that make up the action of loving someone. When you marry somebody, you're committing to doing that for as long as you live or as long as she lives. And because we've lost that meaning of it, now that's why there's a lot of cohabitating. That's why even inside of a lot of marriages, a marriage you just throw it away when you're done with it. Yeah. That's why Tia Mowry would say she had a successful marriage. It's delusion. It's pure delusion.
Wow. Okay. So I like that perspective. I don't think a lot of us were taught what is marriage, because you hear so many women, see their parents married. They're like, oh, that was so toxic. They end up getting a divorce. What matters about it anyway? It's just a piece of paper. Like, what do you have to say about those people that just say, like, it's just a piece of paper? Like, if we're paying bills together, living together, having children together, we're basically married. We just don't have the paper. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it is just a piece of paper when you look at the legal aspect of it. But with the cohabitating, to be able to just say what's the difference, you have to understand the symbolic nature of it. You are actually making a vow to a person that used to mean something. It doesn't mean anything really anymore, but before, to make a vow before God that you are going to be with this person and you're going to love them, that carried really heavy consequences for a community that was deeply Christian. So now that it's lost that weight, and now that the church has lost a lot of power and they're off preaching on some other stuff, and families are just getting together and breaking apart, and it's cool to have have multiple baby fathers. Like, we are just in a completely sunken state. So it's hard to find people that still have those initial values. And that's why I think, especially for a lot of young people, when they're getting together and getting married, you're really finding a gem if you can find a person that has those values still inside of them, of how they want to proceed inside of a marriage and what it should look like. And we really just have to get away from our modern culture to kind of refine that.
If I can just add on to that, because I love what you said, Nelson. And I think that whole concept of vows, I think people don't understand the magnitude of that, right? We talk about the wedding and it's supposed to be this great celebration, and we show off the dress, and everybody kind of goes home. But the concept of a vow is to make these promises not just before God, but in front of people who are going to support the success of that marriage, right? That is truly the value of a vow. And that's what makes it more significant than a promise, right? But I think our society's shifted to being so individualistic that, if I just make these promises to you and I do it in private, and I'm not doing it publicly to people who are going to hold me accountable to that, well, then I can skirt around gaslighting, or bending the rules a little bit, or I didn't say that. You know what I mean? And I think when we understand the value of what things are, we stop trying to diminish them and kind of use different words to try to mean the same thing. And I think that happens a lot. There's so much wordplay that happens in these conversations that we conflate ideas that don't actually belong together. And we start to see, how many times have we heard the conversation of well, we're basically married. Well, what does that mean if we're really valuing marriage, right? oh, well, I said these vows. Well, what does that mean if you just, did it at the courthouse with, legal witnesses and not people who genuinely want to see your marriage succeed? Having children, right? What does that mean to bring them into this world as two people, and to actually have to take care of people who cannot take care of themselves, if you don't understand what the value of that is, right? And I think the moment we start to actually use the words that are intended for certain things, instead of trying to remix the story and what it's supposed to look like, the conversation starts to look a little bit differently.
I mean, I think marriage rate also went down when people have realized that, well, whatever stats were out there, we were always told that your marriage is likely to fail if you're poor. So don't marry poor. So I think a lot of men and women are saying, okay, I need to, wait until he's in this financial space. And the man is like, I don't want to get married until I'm financially stable because, I got to focus on this. And then you get a baby in between that. That's just like, where a lot of couples are like, you know what, let's bring a baby in this situation because we're going to get married anyway. We're going to be together anyway. I think a lot of women, when they do get pregnant, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say a lot of women, when they do get pregnant, they do expect to marry that person that they're with. They do expect to be with that person forever. And that's their forever person. And they're like, you know what, I'm going to have a baby. Then you got the other women who are like, well, I don't know who the dad is, or this was a one night stand, or, I'm just messing with my sneaky link and get pregnant by my sneaky link and carry the baby through. I don't understand women like that just get pregnant, and like, what outcomes do you think is going to happen, and why are they so comfortable bringing in those type of babies from situations that they were never in a real relationship with this person?